Hello and welcome to the Books Crypto Club weekly catch-up on Zoom. It is Sunday the 9th of October 2022, and as always today we're going to talk about whatever the audience wants to talk about. Some weeks we talk about cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFis, ICOs, STOs, any other three-letter acronym really. We hold these sessions 7 p.m. UK time on a Sunday every week. The meetings are open to everybody, novice and expert alike, and we welcome questions from beginners who want to learn more, and also invite experts who are running projects or have some information they'd like to share to come along and talk about it. Okay, hope you enjoy this week's session. Do click on the subscribe, click on the like, make comments. Even better, come on to a future session. So let's see who's going to come and join us this week. Thank you for joining us today. And are you a novice or an expert, or where are you?
Novice.
No, novice. Okay, that's good. Hey, Gaz, come and join us again.
Hello.
Well, welcome back again. So, Sabir, it's your first time, I think, and Gaz came along last week. So obviously, I didn't scare him off. That's good.
No.
So straight away, then we never really know how many people are going to show up. So this is always a great chance that if you're a novice and you want to ask some questions without loads of people being here, this is a great time to start. I don't know, Sabir, you're saying you are a novice. Is there anything where you've joined today because you've got particular questions you'd like answering, or you're just generally interested?
I just want to get an understanding. Like, I've heard things, but I'm not sure if my sources are like the best sources. So I just want to hear from an independent source. So I can work out what everything really means.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Time after time, I see written all over the place, do your own research. And, you know, if you're getting into cryptocurrencies or you're getting into crypto tokens, you'll hear, oh, do your own research. The problem is you don't know which are the good places to research and which are the bad. And you could spend your life on YouTube listening to all sorts of stuff, and you've got no idea if they're talking rubbish, if they're just hyping stuff or whatever. So I can assure you that at least by joining us here, you'll get an open and honest viewpoint from people, particularly those who've been in this space for a little while. And we're always really keen to, you know, encourage people to learn the proper way, really. So that's really good. So any immediate questions there?
Yeah, what's a node?
What's a
node? N-O-D-E.
An N-I-D-E. Hey, Nicola.
So
I ask that again, Sabir. I'm not familiar with an N-I-D-E.
Neither am I. Somebody just said something about getting a node for crypto, and I was like, how? Never heard of a node in crypto terms before. So
a cryptocurrency?
I guess.
Mm-hmm. Is it like something like a Bitcoin or a?
I think most likely Bitcoin.
Okay, so straight away, the thing I say, it's a massive world. You know, there's over 2,000 cryptocurrencies and this kind of thing. But straight away, if someone's suggesting something I've not heard of, I would just have a little alarm bell.
I've not heard of that.
No, I'd just be a little bit cautious.
I think if I were getting into it, I think I'd get into Bitcoin first, and then work from that.
Okay, do you mean a node, Sabia?
Yeah, do you mean
I've ever heard of it in
a node is a part. Well, Gary will know better. But a node is a piece of software that's part of a blockchain.
So there's a few similar words. There's a node on a blockchain, which is if you're doing crypto mining, and I doubt that's what you're getting into. Or there's a thing called a nano, and a nano is kind of like a USB stick, but it's similar to one of those.
One here.
There we go. Yeah. Well, we'll walk around with them.
Yeah.
And they are hardware wallets that people stick the cryptocurrency keys on. So it may be someone is saying get a nano, perhaps. That'd be possible.
It was on text. It was nice.
In that case, I would suggest that maybe they've got auto spell check wrong.
Oh, okay.
It might be worthwhile go back and ask what they were talking about. The other one might be that there might be a cryptocurrency out there called NIDE or whatever. I'd just be very suspicious of it.
I'd ask them some links.
As Gaz says, stick with the big ones to begin with, the likes of Bitcoin that everyone knows about. So,
okay.
See, Nicola, I think, is doing some research now. You look as though you had a load of screens up there. You're digging around.
I've just got my other screen up. So I was just looking to see if there was like a cryptocurrency called a no something.
Okay.
Yeah. But in fairness, I'm always learning all the time, and I do get a number of weeks where people come along and say, "Oh, what do you know about?" And I go, "I've never heard of that," and it's actually something entirely legitimate.
There's lots about though, and there's loads and loads. So
there is. So my suggestion is straight away a good place to come and learn and find out stuff is come along to these sessions to begin with, because we're all going to be straightforward and honest, and nobody on here will try and sell you anything. Which straight away, that's always an indicator. If you come on some of the YouTube channels or whatever where you can dial in, and they start trying to sell you courses, or they try and sell you crypto coins, it's like, no, just be careful on that. Hey, Elena.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
That was like the satellite delay of this going out to Dublin then, wasn't it? It's like, just click on that. So Sabir, with that aside, do you have any other questions that we can help you with?
No, I really just want to learn, like I said, from an independent source.
Yep.
How far are you?
I'll say I'm a complete beginner.
It is scary starting.
Yeah.
Getting into it.
I'd certainly suggest that there are some websites that you can look at which are better than others.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to actually look at things like prices of cryptocurrencies and crypto markets, then coinmarketcap.com is great, but that might be a level beyond even where you're at the moment. So something like, I think it's bitcoin.org, if I remember the correct one. There's two sites, there's bitcoin.com and bitcoin.org. Both of them have got some really useful information on them.
And also Coinbase has an academy, and so does Binance. They're actually good. They both have free academies that you can wander through their material.
And in fact, if I remember correctly with Binance, I think the way they've got it set up is that you can actually do like mini courses. And as you go through them, you get awarded cryptocurrencies or crypto tokens. So straight away, it's a way of learning about these things and getting some free tokens as well.
I always found Coinbase easier when I first started. You know, it seemed very simple. And then when I seen the fees and that, and I'm like, yeah, and I kind of moved away and went to others. Once I learned a bit more. But that platform seemed very easy, Coinbase.
And eToro as well.
Yeah.
eToro has an education academy. You can do demo trading on that. So that's another blanket.
I like eToro. That's good, that.
I was going to offer at least a starting point, Sabir, is exactly what you were doing, which is learn about it first. You know, and just read a little bit about it, understand what a crypto wallet is, or understand, you know, what an exchange is, understand sufficiently that you don't feel as though you're just totally lost. And you will find at the beginning, because I experienced this myself, there's an awful lot of phrases and terms. It's very, very confusing at first. And it takes a while for you to listen to the jargon and the words. And gradually you get there and you learn and learn. So Nicola, how long have you been into crypto? A bit longer, isn't it?
I would say for the last 6 months, but I come from a trading background anyway. I'm a Forex trader for the last 3 years. So moving into crypto kind of made
it's just another instrument.
Sense. You know, I'm a risk averse person, but I'm intrigued by the capabilities of crypto, not necessarily the buying and selling of it. I'm more interested in the business purpose of it. You know, what's the story behind the currency? What purpose is it serving? Is it revenue generating, a physical asset? How is it being applied into a particular industry? That kind of stuff. So, and then of course that led me into buying and holding Bitcoin and Ethereum and that kind of thing. You know.
So that's interesting, because you seem to be looking at it from a how can cryptocurrency be used in a business perspective.
Yes.
I know Elena's looked at things from how blockchain is used in a business perspective.
Yeah.
And there's a whole range of things of provenance and supply chain and that. And I always say that cryptocurrency is a feature of blockchain. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, if you imagine we've got a foundation layer, which is almost like the railway lines, and that's the blockchain level. Then you've got the trains, which are the applications. So that might be Bitcoin or whatever. Then you've got the actual seats with the tickets on the trains. So that's like the NFTs and smart contracts and that kind of thing. So there's whole loads of layers upon layers to learn.
I like that acronym. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but I actually used that with a client, and they were really impressed. And they did some lovely glossy slides that I'm not allowed to share. But unfortunately, they did this most amazing non-disclosure agreement. So quite often, if I'm working with a company, they expect me to sign an NDA. And usually NDAs are about 8 or 10 or 12 pages long of all sorts of twaddly stuff. But this was just a one-pager that basically said, if you admit you've ever worked with us, you're going to prison. It's like,
oh, God.
Yeah, nice. It was very simple. And they are a very large, well-known US company with contacts in dark places, shall we say.
Oh.
So
I hope it's worth it, Gary.
it was. They were quite an amazing company, because they do some fascinating stuff. And it was actually helping them understand how they could shift their business from a traditional technology company to a crypto savvy one. We did a load of stuff around the innovation space, and yeah, they showed me some of the stuff they do in the traditional world, and it was like, oh wow. So it was interesting stuff.
How do you get into a job in crypto?
So
I bet there's so many jobs though that they can do. So it's not just coding, and
yeah,
there must be plenty of.
You're right. So in terms of there is the coding route straight away. So for anybody who's getting into the whole Web3, metaverse, distributed systems type thing, then coding is definitely a, go and learn Java and start looking for where the jobs are on that. I came into this space a totally different way, in that I created my own job. So I'd worked for a number of companies over the years, loads of different industries, retail, pharmaceuticals, commodities, insurance, all the fairly boring ones. And I'd worked as an employee for about 35 years, and got to the point where I realized 20 years earlier I should have gone independent. And then one day I walked into the office as normal, with my weekly report ready, and the IT director said, Gary, before you start, I'm afraid we're about to do a company restructure and we're going to get rid of your department. And I said, oh, great, when do you want me to go? And they said, oh, no, we'll do a replacement, whatever, we'll find it. No, when do you want me to go? And so I did a good deal negotiating leaving there, because at this stage, I'd already heard a little bit about crypto, a fair amount about blockchain, and I thought, this is going to be the next big wave of something coming in. I can either join it or I can miss out on it type thing. And so finished there, set up my own consultancy, spoke to an organization I've done a load of stuff with previously about data within the insurance industry, and effectively created myself a role where I said, you need to be looking at blockchain and how it could work in insurance. And they said, we agree. I said, you need to be careful of some of the big companies who are doing stuff because they might rip you off. They said, we agree. I said, and you need someone really to guide you through how blockchain works and understand how insurance works. And they said, we agree. When can you start? And that was it. And so I actually did 12 months working for Lloyd's of London, actually helping to run proof of concepts and innovation type things for them, exploring things from there. And then from there, did some work with pensions company who realized that this was an interesting space. Then did some work with, I think it was another legal firm or something, and then went from there. So my journey was quite different. I think if you want to go and get a great job, go and create it yourself. No, don't work for others. But yeah,
Sorry, carry on, Gary. Sorry.
Go on, Nicola. Carry on.
I was just going to ask Gaz the same question. Are you a crypto person? Are you a career? Is it career or is it a hobby or what is it?
No, I just traded stocks more than anything, and then crypto kept coming up, and then I started looking into it, and then I went down this big rabbit hole, and then it was like, oh wow, and then it just escalated from that. I'm pretty obsessed, to be fair, but I've only been in about 2 years. But no, it was just from stocks, and then from stocks to crypto, and it's just been like that. So
yeah,
I'm still learning loads about it.
Yeah, and I think it's an industry we'll never know everything about it. It's just, you know, it's the same with me with Forex trading. You know, you start doing it. You know, I'm a smart money trader. I where's the liquidity? What am I buying, selling, and all that? And then somewhere someone mentions crypto, and you go, no, I'll never touch that because it's too risky.
Well, I always classed it as though it was scamish, like, oh no, it's a scam, it's a scam. And then when I looked into it, I started watching videos, and then it was like, wow. And it would just, I thought it was massive.
And I think probably like you and yourself, Gary, is the mindset of, because you have this underlying knowledge, you can spot the scam, and you know how things are how they're supposed to tick, you know?
Exactly. And it's interesting as well. I think the more I've got into it, the more I realize how much there is to get into. So you're right, you dig up this like rabbit warren type thing of learning things. And what it's also done, it's a little bit like meteorology. I used to study the weather a lot, and I ended up doing some quite high level training courses around meteorology and forecasting and that. And that was the same. The more you learned about it, the more you realize just how incredibly little you understand about how weather systems work. And once you got into that, then you start listening to all this climate change stuff, and you go, that just does not stack up with how this actually works. So you begin to realize what's the real and fake stuff. But on the crypto and blockchain stuff, the other thing I found interesting is that the more and more I've learned about crypto, the more and more I've forced myself to learn about traditional finance. And the more and more I've learned how little I understood about that, and also how little most other people know as well.
Yes, I completely concur with that. The money story now is, you know, I listen to stuff on the news, you know, when we had last week the Bank of England talking about the pound weakening and it's crashing and it's going to be on parity with the dollar, and I'm sitting here looking at the charts going, yeah, it's falling, but it's also recovering. You know, it was fascinating, the media saying one thing and you're watching it yourself, you know. Fascinating.
I find it horrifying because you look at some news items and that, and they're saying, oh, inflation's gone up to, I think they're now saying 10%. And I was thinking, well, it was 30% 6 months ago. It's just that they don't admit to it. I use what's called a Tirit index, which is...
Oh, I've not heard of that. What's that called?
The Tirit index, it's one I invented. Right? Oh. So what you do is you go into your local high street, and there's quite often a shirt shop called Charles Tirit. You heard of Charles Tirit shirts? No, guys, if you're up north, then Gaz, that you've got an excuse. Or, you know, but Nicola around London and that, Charles Tirit shirt shops are everywhere. And the Tirit index is really simple. Last year, a white business shirt was £25. This year, a white business shirt is £34. Therefore, inflation is 34 divided by 25. That's your inflation rate. You know, I call that the Tirit index, and I think it works out to 34% of, sorry, got what the exact number is, but certainly it's horrific.
It's a bit more realistic than the CPI data that comes out.
What do you think's happened? Do you reckon we've bottomed, or do you reckon we've still got more to go?
I think there might be, but the fact that we got to 103 against the dollar last week, I think that might be touching it now. And looking at the charts, there's money upstairs now that has to be mitigated. So I think, well, that's analytical, you know. I don't know what's going to happen in the macro level, fundamentals. So
the interesting one is you look at how over leveraged banks are right now, and the numbers I'm seeing in terms of the derivatives that they've got exposure on. they're in a worse position now than they were in 2008.
There were rumours about where it bank, what that German bank, is it Bank Swiss?
There's originally there was Deutsche Bank.
Yeah.
Deutsche Bank were rumoured they had some issues a while ago. Last week or 2 weeks ago, there was Credit Suisse.
That's it.
Which is another big one. But actually, if you look at the top 20, I was on a panel about a month ago now with a private banker, and we were talking about crypto and this kind of thing. And he said he's done all liquidity analysis of all the big banks. And he said all the top 20 of them, he said, are leveraged beyond the ability of being able to recover, let alone to be in a difficult place.
I'm just hoping there's nothing like 2008, that's all.
I don't think there will. I think it'll be far worse. No, I think it'll be far worse.
There's a podcast I listened to the other day. Do you know that chap Tom Bilyeu from America? Tom Bilyeu?
No, I don't think so.
No. He did a podcast with a guy called Michael Saylor.
Oh, I know Michael Saylor, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you might actually like Tom Bilyeu, who's been around he has a platform called Impact Theory. He interviews all sorts of characters from different walks of life. Anyway, this is a 2-hour-long podcast, right? So it's definitely a long drive, a long walk, or you're cooking or something like that, and you've nothing else to focus on. And the nugget drops he dropped on that, he said stuff like, in 2008, the banks got bailed out. In years to come, the banks will bail in because they'll have to go and get other people's money to save themselves, freeze people's bank accounts and stuff like that. So if you want to listen to something quite out there, have a listen to what he has to say. Some very good knowledge nuggets in there,
And it's interesting as well that the legislation in various countries, certainly the UK, changed from bailout to bail-in over a year ago now. And it was interesting how a lot of people don't quite realise what that is. And effectively what it means is that if you've got a bank account and the bank goes under, you are almost a lender of last resort now.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't realise, again, this is what I learned through crypto. When you make a deposit of your money into a bank account, it ceases to be your money.
Correct.
It is now that you have actually given a loan to the bank legally. So it's no longer your money. And that's why it is that if a bank becomes illiquid and goes bankrupt, you're just in the long list of creditors. And the taxman has priority and various others have priority. And that's why in the UK, we've got FSCS, which is the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, which sort of guarantees the first £85,000, I think it is now,
that's right,
of any money that you have in a bank. A couple of issues with that is that, first of all, actually, if you bank with a few banks, you do the diversification of risk piece, but then you discover that actually they're all part of the same group. So this is where you sometimes find there are banks, I think, is it RBS, Lloyds, and one or two others used to all be part of the same kind of thing. You only get £85,000 in total, not 85,000 for each account, which some people don't realise. But then if you've got 85k in your bank accounts, you should have people working this out for you anyway. So yeah, there's certainly that. And in the USA, they've got the equivalent. They've actually got an insurance scheme, which genuinely underwrites, and it's through an insurance platform, the risk of a bank defaulting, that kind of thing. So yeah,
and
I find
it's for stuff like this Michael Saylor is definitely, brings us back to our crypto. He's a Bitcoin evangelist. He's literally going out there and encouraging people to get yourself educated.
He's been buying and buying, that bloke, isn't he? Michael Saylor.
Yeah. Well, for those who don't know the name, so Michael Saylor, he was the CEO of MicroStrategy.
Right.
And MicroStrategy is a very successful business intelligence and analytics company. Yeah. And I think it was over a year ago now, they started investing some of their reserves into Bitcoin.
Correct, yeah.
And that was that was the first time a big company had done that, where they actually put some of their reserves into Bitcoin. And Michael Saylor said, I'm doing it not in order to, the potential upside of Bitcoin is great, blah, blah, blah. He said, I'm doing it as a hedge against traditional currencies collapsing, which was interesting. And he made all these announcements and everything. And good enough, Bitcoin rocketed up initially and he was a hero. And then Bitcoin plummeted down, and everyone wanted him sacked and that. So when there was the recent drop of Bitcoin down to about 20K, I think it was, he announced he was buying more of it.
Yeah.
And that kind of blew people. It's like, hang on, you've just made a massive loss and you put in even more. And he said, no, this is a long-term play, hedging against the traditional markets. So absolutely, as Nicholas says, there is kind of a, not even a tangential link to crypto with the likes of Michael Saylor, because he thinks it is a good way of hedging against traditional currencies.
The way that he explained it was good.
You know, the other commentator is an American guy, Robert Breedlove. Have you heard of him? He's another Bitcoin or crypto evangelist. And he has a great phrase that sticks in my head. And because he just believes in it so much. And he says, cryptocurrency or Bitcoin is my insurance policy for current monetary policy. And I love that. It's just like, okay, we need to be paying attention. We need to be building something here. We need to be protecting ourselves from the tyranny of banks, from their monetary policy, because they're ruining our fiat. Fascinating. So he's another one, Robert Breedlove. Very interesting surname.
But there are a few who are kind of like coming out kind of thing, and being open to be willing to stick their head above the parapet now, which is great.
And there's another guy I love called Da Vinci James. Now he is fascinating because he talks about, he's been buying Bitcoin since like 2002 or something ridiculous, but he's got this whole, he's learned about money and crypto and the story, and I didn't even know until I listened to him that Bitcoin was a commodity. They classify Bitcoin as a commodity.
So it's never necessarily fully been classified anywhere as anything, which is the kind of bizarre thing. So Bitcoin was 2009, in fact. So maybe it was a little bit later than we're saying. But if you take a look at in the USA at the moment, there's a big court case going on between the Securities Exchange Commission, so that's the SEC, and Ripple, and that's around whether Ripple is a security or not. And the argument is that some cryptocurrencies are securities. You've also got there's something like 13 federal agencies who are all staking a claim around crypto and Bitcoin being within their domain. So the CFTC, so that's the Commodities and Futures Market, they're saying, well, crypto is a commodity, so it falls within our purview. SEC says, no, it's a security, so it falls within ours. I'm trying to remember who you've got Federal Reserve, that they take an interest, because they say, well, actually it behaves like money, and therefore we should control it, because nobody can issue US dollar bills unless the Federal Reserve denominated, and you're effectively trying to create a money type thing. I can't even remember some of the other agencies, but there's certainly 12 or 13 of them. And then the other thing about the states, and this is where, again, it took me a few years to understand why the United States of America is called the United States of America as opposed to America. And it's because when you actually look at regulation, they have state regulation as well. So every state has got its own regulations around crypto, all this kind of thing. So the California approach is different to the New York approach. They've got different licensing schemes and everything like that. Right. So the States, to me, is a very complex market for crypto, because depending upon where you go to and what day of the week it is and whether it's sunny or raining, it might be a commodity for tax purposes. It might be a money for money laundering purposes. It's crazy.
Interesting. I'm fascinated by the battle. What does the battle really mean then? What does the battle really mean then between all these regulators? Does it mean that they know something that's quite powerful about the subject of crypto?
I think it's that they can all see the potential, and they all want an opportunity to put it within their perimeter so that they get all the funding to regulate it, in effect. And I think it's as simple as that. So it's a power play where they're all trying to stake a claim because they know that if they get to have a label that says this is regulated by whichever agency, then that agency will get funding to support it. Yeah. So I think in some ways it's a funding battle, which does mean that they think it has a future. Yes. Because if they thought, oh, this is just, you listen to Nouriel Roubini or some of the economists who say, oh, it's all a Ponzi scheme, it's all a fad, it'll all die out, it's a bubble. If the regulators thought that way, then they'd say, yeah, let's just let it die off type thing. But they're not. So that's an interesting point.
I think they know it's here to stay. And then that's what we'll be fighting for a few years, regulation, I reckon. Probably.
And it's one of those interesting and ironic things as well, that I think that with increasing regulation, as long as it's done in the right way, that actually increases the market. Exactly right, yeah.
I think other big companies will start coming into it, and then it'll escalate from there. Once regulation's in place.
Well, I keep using the airplane analogy. That I don't know, have I shared this with you before about aviation and crypto? Okay, so think of Bitcoin as being the equivalent in aviation to the 1903 Wright brothers airplane. And I think Aline has certainly heard this one before, who was discussing this with me. So at the moment, we're at 1903. We're at Kitty Hawk, and the little airplane's done its first few hops, and it's got in a few newspapers, and already people are saying, well, that's never going to fly across the Atlantic with 500 people on it, is it? It's got no future whatsoever. It's useless. It's a scam. You're going against nature, blah, 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 blah. And then the technology people, the engineers, completely ignore the naysayers, and they go and invent the next thing, which is in the crypto world is probably Ethereum. So Ethereum, new functionality, new capabilities, a bit like in 1911, I think it was, with Louis Blériot. Again, it's my plane spotting days comes out. So Louis Blériot, French guy, also designed and built airplanes and had some ideas. And so you get all these people who come up with these ideas, and every so often they say, oh, should we try this with 3 wings instead of 1 wing? And it takes off and it crashes, and the pilot dies, and the ambulance comes along, and the lawyers come along, and the government comes along. The government says, you can't do this, it's killing people. And so they get the regulators in, the regulator writes loads of rules, and they go, oh, yeah, we won't do that again. And so next time, about 1916, I think it was, when Fokker, I think it was, came out, they do the next innovation of, why don't we try this with the tail the other way around, so the tail's at the back instead of at the front, and they get it take off, and it works. So everyone then clusters around that. So it's a bit like smart contracts kicking in. And then the next innovation comes along, and this time they try and put 8 people in it, and it takes off and it crashes. Government comes back, regulators, lawyers, blah, 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 more regulation. So aviation has taken 100 years to get to the point where we fly 400 people at 500 knots across 6,000 miles or whatever. And it's taken 100 years. It's taken a lot of bloodshed. It's taken a lot of lessons learned, but it's moved on. Crypto's kind of the same. So you take a look back to like the DAO. The DAO was a project in 2016 where there was a bit of code that someone exploited. They got about $50 million out of it. And
DAO, is that the word?
DAO, yeah. So it stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. Yeah. And the idea was you'd actually have a separate legal unique identity that was a smart contract. So it was a computer program that was responsible for itself, which is in those days quite a profound idea. And the principle was that people who were part of the DAO could vote. And so it was kind of like a governance token type thing. So go and read about it. Google the DAO 2016. And that they launched, this was just at the beginning of the ICO craze in 2016. They raised, I think it was $150 million, like in days. And then at the same point, this hacker spotted this little code exploit. And the code exploit was really clever. It was a bit like you go to a bank machine, you know, you put your card in, you type in your PIN, And then you say, I'd like £200, please. It goes off, it checks to make sure you've got enough money, and it gives you the £200. Well, what the DAO did, the way they coded it, was unfortunate. Like, it allowed you to then ask for another £200, and it didn't recheck your account balance. And then it allowed you to take out another £200, another £200, another £200, and so on. And it did this effectively $50 million worth, I think it was, out of 150 million. At which point, someone noticed this was happening. And I think in the middle of the night, there were tweets going all over the place saying, this is not a drill, but we've got a major problem. And that was the one time, to my knowledge, that the Ethereum network kind of halted. And the Ethereum founders and the community got together to work out what they were going to do about it. The first thing was the DAO team patched the code, so it wasn't allowed to do it again. But then you had a situation of $50 million had gone to this hacker, and there weren't the thousands of crypto coins there are now and mixers and that kind of thing. So they actually ended up rolling Ethereum back. So they did a hard fork with it, and they rolled back the transactions that had allowed the funds to go to the hacker. And this is why you've got two Ethereums. You've got Ethereum, which is ETH, and Ethereum Classic, which is ETC. ETC is the non-rolled back version of the blockchain without the code changes and everything. So it was kind of interesting because a number of things were kind of proved to be disproven through that. One was, up until that point, everyone was going around saying the code is law, so we don't need law anymore. If it's in the code, that is what law is. And that they were also, so you may have heard the phrase, you know, code is law. And the lawyers at the time were laughing, saying, no, the law is law. And so all the people who said code is law suddenly said, oh, well, it's law except for where it means I've just lost a few $1 million because of a coding problem. So maybe the code isn't law. So it disproved that. It also showed how it was that you can roll back a blockchain, which up until this point, everyone had been told, oh, blockchains are completely immutable, you can't rewrite them. This kind of disproved that. Yeah. And it also disproved the whole decentralization idea. You think about the principle of a Bitcoin network or Ethereum network, is you've got all these nodes spread all over the place, no one's got control. Well, it seems that for the Ethereum rollback, if I remember correctly, that was actually agreed upon by a minority of network participants, but they were a minority who carried sufficient influence. So it happened anyway. So I found the DAO brilliant. So I thought it was one of the big first plane crashes in the crypto world. And then they rolled it back, which meant that no one really learned from it. So I think it was a few months or a year or so later, some of the people from the same team who built the DAO then built I think it was a crypto wallet, which again had a bug in it. Again, it wasn't fully tested. And again, loads of funds were transferred incorrectly in there. So
do you know then why USD Tether, why is that 1-to-1 with the dollar? How is that possible?
So the theory, for those who don't know, there's a crypto token called USDT or Tether. So if you go onto a crypto exchange, type in USDT, you see there's a thing called a Tether token. And this is what is known as a stable coin. A stable coin is a crypto token that is pegged against something else. So you could peg it against the US dollar. So 1 USDT equals $1 US, or you could peg it against GBP, or you could peg it against Bitcoin, or a basket of currencies. There's a whole range of things. Tether, in theory, is pegged against the US dollar because originally what they said is for every Tether token that's created, we will hold $1 US in reserve in a bank account. Okay. And that was how it was for a while until they seemed to move some monies around. So their accounts were never fully audited independently, which always is a bit of an alarm bell. And then when there was an audit, they then turned around and said, well, actually, it's not 1-for-1 Tether to a dollar. it's tethered to a dollar or dollar equivalent. And you go, oh, what's a dollar equivalent? And that was where they admitted that they held some reserves in dollars and some reserves in other cryptocurrencies.
Like the basket, okay.
Yeah. And the other cryptocurrency that they held, I can't remember what it was now, but it was connected in some way to the company. So there was something that was a bit uncomfortable. And now I think they say that it's pegged, but it's pegged against a mixture of dollars and other assets, that kind of thing.
Right, okay.
Yeah. There was quite a long write-up because Tether had some problems a while ago. I think when there was an external audit being done or something. Again, the easiest thing is just go and Google a few blogs on Tether and pegging against the dollar, because it is quite an interesting one. And this is where it's probably for Savio's benefit. This is where you start hearing terms like stable coins. First thing, if someone says they use a stable coin, is it's a token that is stabilized against something else.
Yeah.
And what you'll find quite often is that a few well-known stable coins are Tether and BUSD, which is the Binance stable coin for US dollar. People quite often use stable coins as a way of getting into all of these other cryptocurrencies. So typically an entry point into the crypto world for a complete novice, say yourself, is first of all, you will register with an exchange. So Binance, Coinbase, blockchain.com, crypto.com. These are all got websites where you can actually register. You need to give them a few details, and then they give you what is called a wallet. And the wallet is quite often a piece of software that's loaded onto your computer or onto your mobile phone that allows you to buy and sell cryptocurrencies. However, in order to buy and sell the cryptocurrencies, you first all need some money in your wallet. And this is where you would typically transfer some local currency, so pounds for most of us on the call, or euros or dollars, transfer that into your crypto wallet, and then you can buy and sell cryptocurrencies. Some exchanges have only a limited number of cryptocurrencies on them. So the thing I used to love about Coinbase, and the reason it was so simple to use, was it only offered about 5 or 6 cryptocurrencies originally. It had Bitcoin, Ethereum, I think Dash, and a Litecoin, and maybe a couple of others. So if you then wanted to stay within the crypto world without constantly converting your money from British pounds to Bitcoin to something else or whatever, what people sometimes do is they convert the profits into stable coin so it stays within the crypto world. Because if you think every time you take your money out of crypto and put it back into pounds or dollars, you're paying someone exchange fees in some way. So if you think of it as two worlds, you've got the crypto world over here and you've got your traditional money world over here. What people sometimes do is they pass the traditional money over to the crypto world, and then they leave the cash world and they play around with all these different tokens and that in the crypto world. And stable coins just help them with that.
It's good for trading because it's faster as well.
Yeah. And quite often, you're right, and a really good point as well is that if you do start getting into this, then the fees are usually low with stable coins as well. So in particular, Binance, we mentioned Binance before, they've got BUSD, which is a stable coin that they use. They've also got BNB, which is like an internal Binance trading type coin as well. But they've got a whole bunch of stuff because they had there was a hack on one of their networks the other day, on Thursday, in fact.
Yeah.
There was a coin which was it BSC? It was the Binance Smart Chain token. So I think it was BSC. There was a hack where I think they got a forward loan of $100 million or something. And then they spread that across various other exchanges, various
it's been 500 million.
Well, it ended up at 580 million was the last number I saw.
Well, it's been created extra. It's like it's been recreated. So it's not it's been recreated off that bridge, which is mad.
So this is again where you start saying, how on earth does that work?
Yeah.
So you've got this concept called bridges, and bridges are the ability for two blockchains or two cryptos to talk to each other. And sometimes they'll have like loan capabilities built into them. So one of the features around DeFi is a thing called flash loans. And flash loans are something where, say you've got $100 in Bitcoin and you want to buy some Bitcoin on one exchange and sell it on another exchange because you can see there's an arbitrage opportunity. You can create what's called a flash loan on an exchange, which will loan you $100 worth of Bitcoin, allows you to buy the other Bitcoin and sell it back. And as long as it's all done within the one transaction where you then pay the loan back, then it's almost instant. And you've done an arbitrage play without actually having to buy the crypto. So you've kind of loaned it. And I think the smart chain hack was something similar, that it did like a temporary loan type thing, boshed it all out, and then got it back. So this is where I think it kind of like forward lent $100 million. They then use that to put out onto other exchanges to do some trades.
Yeah, so left so much on Binance, didn't they?
Yeah.
It's like a margin then.
Say again?
It's a bit like a margin for trading.
Kind of, yeah.
So I think because it's like not classed as decentralized, because he stopped it all, then he stopped the chain.
So this is the thing that he actually didn't. So what happened is that the CEO of Binance, a guy called CZ, as he's typically known, CZ or Ching Haozing, I think is his name. What he did was that he got in touch with some of the node operators and said, I'd like you to stop, please. And they all did. Now, to me, that wasn't him stopping it, or it was him having a massive influence. So therefore, it was still decentralized. But it shows the power of individuals, that effectively, if the Binance CEO says, please stop doing this, stop trading in this, whatever, he's got enough influence to be able to say, because if you don't, I'll switch you off anyway, type of thing, I guess.
Wow.
So it's quite
centralized, decentralized, centralized.
Exactly right. Yeah. So I had a conversation with a couple of people about this the other day, because they were saying, well, this shows that it's not decentralized. It's like, well, actually, it shows that the governance is decentralized, but it shows how decentralized governance works, that if you still know your mates and you get on with each other and you can have an influence on them, it doesn't matter how decentralized it is. So, yeah, interesting. Definitely. So, Alina, you've been very quiet today, just listening and observing.
Yeah, quiet, but listening. No, there is something I wanted to ask when there is an opportunity.
Go for it.
Thank you. In the Telegram channel, you posted a request for survey a couple days ago that was about your project in digital asset custody and estate planning.
Yeah.
So if there are no NDAs, would you tell us how is this project going?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I am down on a team anyway, so I can talk about it. So this is a US company called LockBlock, and they've got a heritage in cybersecurity and cryptography. Not cryptocurrency, cybersecurity and cryptography, which actually, when you put them together, takes you down the crypto route anyway. And I'm working with them. They're developing a number of highly secured solutions for digital assets. So digital assets is massive, and part of it is cryptocurrency. And what we're looking at is around digital estate planning. So people who are high net worth, who've bought a load of Bitcoin or bought a load of crypto and it's increased in value, who might need to think about what happens if they die. So you think about, for most people, once you got into crypto a little bit, you'll know that you've probably got a thing called a seed phrase, which is one of these 12 or 24 word phrases that looks like a random set of words. It's actually, it's typically from a dictionary of about 3,000 words. You write these 24 words down somewhere, stick it on a piece of paper, stick that in your drawer, and then you get your nano ledger, which has got your crypto keys on it, and you go and stick that in a safe, which is in a vault, which is in an underground cabin down in Zurich, surrounded by security guards. And you don't realize that actually that piece of paper, which has got the 24 words on it, is enough to go and recreate the private keys, which means the crypto could be taken. So the stuff I'm working on is about what can you do differently with those 24 words. So we've developed a solution which I described as non-custodial custody. It's kind of a little bit like, imagine you've got a private key, which is just this random set of things. Imagine there's 5 people who know a hint as to part of that key. So they don't know what part that key is, but a bit like, you know how you've got passwords, and it sometimes says what has a hint what your password is. So you type in the usual one of, you know, this is my first pet's name or something. Well, imagine you've now got 5 people who've got hints to what part of the key might be, right? So in the event that you die, then the executor of the will, and if it's done manually, can then get in touch with these people and say, oh, you know, such and such has died. Please create that part of that key. And then we put it all together. And now we've got the key, which means I can access the funds that are on the blockchain and transfer them to the beneficiaries. So I'm working on a whole bunch of stuff around that at the moment.
That's got to be hard.
No.
What if one of them dies straight after the other one?
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
He had that other bit.
So
this sounds odd now, but it's going to be new normal quite soon.
What are people dying?
See, as well, do you know, like with these seed phrases, some people should not be their own bank, because I see so many people praying about that they can't find the PIN and the seed phrases, and I think, well, why have you not wrote it down and put it somewhere safe, like safe? I don't. They're just crazy. I think that's why it shouldn't be. It should. Some people just don't want to be their own bank.
I saw a brilliant one on TV about 12 months ago now, and it was on, I think it was CNN News. So it was a US program, and it was about someone who'd had the wallet hacked, and they'd had $1 million taken from their warm wallet or their hot wallet. So straight away, you know, the alarm bells start going of, you've got $1 million in hot storage, which for those who don't know the difference between hot and cold storage, it's totally offline, not connected to the internet. People can't get to it. Whereas hot storage or warm storage might be on your laptop or on your mobile phone. It's connected to the internet. So this guy had lost $1 million from what's known as a phishing attack. And a phishing attack was simply, he'd had an email from someone like Binance or one of the exchanges.
I get them all the time.
Except it wasn't a real one. And it basically said, we're going through some security checks. We need you to re-enter your user ID and password, blah, 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 blah. And he fell for it. So they took $1 million out of his account. So straight away you go, why on earth has this guy got $1 million in an unsecured wallet? But then what made it better was CNN then filmed a screen of his computer screen with his login details up. And he also then admitted that the hacker had offered to give him his crypto back if he sent so many Bitcoin. He said, yeah, so that they asked me for 3 Bitcoin or whatever. So I sent it on this date, blah, 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 blah. So now you now know the guy's user ID. You didn't know his password, but you did know that if you go through the Bitcoin blockchain and look for 3 Bitcoin being sent on this date, you now know his wallet address. And it's like, are you just asking for this?
Yeah.
So you're right. Some people,
because I'm on Reddit, I look at Reddit as well, and there's so many on that, and I think I give up. I just can't be bothered. Yeah. There's no telling somebody.
So you're right. There are some people who are dangerous to themselves. So put that into the digital asset planning space for a minute. And this is why I find this whole space fascinating. That you have got some people who haven't got a clue, but have put quite substantial sums into crypto in some way, simply because, like Michael Saylor, they're thinking, well, if fiat currency collapses, this is the future inheritance for the kids. But they've not thought through what happens if they die. And the way we've developed it is that, there's an escrow agent, a legal firm, there's a few other things. And actually, you can have what's called a threshold signature scheme. So you can have like 7 people all signed up as your friends or whatever. And if any 3 out of 7 sign, then it gets approved and the key gets recreated. So you don't need all 7 people to recreate the key. This is the amazing thing. That's where it gets.
A side note to that, though, Gary, right? We're going through probate at the moment for my husband's mum. She's both his parents have passed now, so we're going through probate. So how would we know she doesn't have any digital currency? But some people would be shy about sharing that kind of stuff. Would the probate, like the probate does, where they go out to all the different elements of someone's life and pulls it all together, would your stuff become part of that process as well?
Exactly. So the idea, ultimately, the long-term vision, is that effectively you have a trusted source of deaths. So like what you typically call an oracle. So it's not like Oracle Database or Oracle Films, where it's an oracle that spits out when people have died. When that gets triggered, say someone has died, then you'll have a smart contract that says, did they have any crypto assets on this exchange or whatever? And it fires off things. So the starting point is that the level we're at now is people are writing seed phrases on a piece of paper and burying it in the garden. This is moving it on just a little bit from there as a way of recreating the seed phrase. And then you'll still need some instructions with a lawyer who will keep your will. So with the will, last will and testament, I hereby say, I've got 100 Bitcoin and here's the details of how to recover it and that. But you will end up, as you say, when you go through probate or even lasting power of attorney, if you're doing like financial ownership and that, is that you'll need the ability to get in touch with banks and crypto exchanges and other things to say, I'm acting on behalf of this estate. Do they have any assets in it in any way? And then you have to work it. So, but Binance, for example, your hot wallet, if you die, they do actually have a service where the successor gets in touch and says, hello, my partner's died or whatever. And they've got the standard way of checking whether you're being legitimate in that. So, yeah, so Alina, thanks for asking on that, because it is a really interesting area. And the results of the survey we're getting back are exactly what I expected as well, that the majority of people who've got crypto are typically between 18 and 50. Several of them have got over $1 million in crypto, and all of them have said, I haven't thought about this yet. So it's good that they're saying yes, because that means we might be about to create a market in it. So we're about to do some work with another US company around launching a crypto wallet that has this as a service. So not only do you have a crypto wallet where you buy and sell your crypto, it's also got a service built into it for you to secure your assets for future generations.
I watched an interview with CZ from Binance, and he was saying that if he had the time, because he's everywhere at the minute, but that's what he'd be looking at, is a wallet which is easier for people to work with, that's their own.
Yeah,
because there's no one really creating something that's easier to work with. Like you've got your 24 keys and that people lose them, and like creating some kind of wallet that's easier for people.
Yeah,
because there's going to be more people getting into space as time goes on.
You're right. Ultimately, I was about to say you want it as easy as a banking app, but I find them a complete pain in the proverbial these days, and they're getting harder. What ultimately you want is something that is easy to use but is secure, and that's what we're developing at the moment. So
it will be interesting to know how it is developing.
Yeah. Well, when we launch, I'll let you know, and you can check it out. You can even try it out as well, because we're going to be launching it and opening it up to white hat hackers as well.
Have you kind of created one then?
Yep. So what we're about to do is launch it and make it available for people to actually try and break into.
Yeah.
And we'll have a competition on that to see how people go on there.
Folks, I'm no good at that.
There's some people who love breaking things and love stealing things and that. So sometimes you just wish that these people who are hackers reapplied the methods into the white ethical side.
In a good way.
Yeah, exactly right. So, folks, I'm really sorry we're out of time. the hour has flown by. So Sabir, I know we covered loads and loads of things there, but do come back with questions next time. Do go and learn some things. And if you do have anything, please do come back. And, Gaz, Nicola, Alina, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Have a great week. Hey, so hopefully that was something for everybody this week. Some intro to some of the basics around cryptocurrency. And then we ended up right at the other end of looking at the complexity of digital asset planning for when people pass away. How do you handle your private keys? So if you enjoyed this, do click on the subscribe, click on like, make comments, or even better, come on to a future meeting. See you next time.